Really excited to dive in today on the essential guide to speaker training. Earlier this week, we launched a 50-page, fully in-depth guide that goes into 12 proven tactics that will help enhance session content through speaker training. And we didn't sit in a corner and figure out what these 12 tactics would be. We actually spent the last 6 months conducting research, talking to the leading voices and minds in event content and in the event space to learn what were people doing, what was working, what was unique and differentiated at different companies, and how could we then compile all of those learnings to help create some guidance around formulating some best practices around speaker training. So I'm really, really excited to dive into this today. And I'm going to give a shout out to all of our contributors here in a minute. But we've had a lot of fun playing in this sandbox over the last 6 months. And it's great to see all of this research, all of these interviews culminate in something tangible. So, well, let's dive in. So first and foremost, the case for an effective speaker training program. As we all know, right, we're in this very quickly ever evolving world of not just event marketing, but marketing, where, here at Session Board, we believe that one of the most underutilized assets that a marketing team has, a broader marketing team, is the speaker network that's curated by the event team. And so speakers are often highly curated by the events team. There are deep subject matter experts. There are trusted resources. They are influencers and brand advocates. They're content engines for us, but they should also be a cornerstone of our marketing strategy. And so something that you're going to see that we're going to be talking a lot about here at Session Board is Google's EEAT framework, which is experience, expertise, trustworthiness, and authoritativeness. Also, fun fact, I'm using Canva for the first time to present this, and I'm really loving the little guide we have here on the screen. That's fun. But Google's EEAT framework, when we think about experience, how well the content creator demonstrates personal experience with a topic, we think about their expertise, the depth of knowledge that the speaker and the content creator has on a subject matter, the level of trust, reliability, integrity of the speaker, and the authoritativeness of the speaker in the space, their reputation, their credentials, their breadth and level of trust in the community. These are all the same factors that Google is looking at when we look at our content, when we look at SEO optimization. And so we are sitting on a reservoir of experience, of expertise, of trustworthiness, and authoritativeness to help us accelerate our marketing engines through our event content, through our speaker network. And so this is like the foundation for why it's so vital and why it's so important that we have a programmable, effective speaker training program, because we want to prepare our speakers to deliver the best in class content possible, because it's not just going to impact our event, it's also going to impact our broader marketing engine. So this is the foundation of what we're building off of, especially with the evolution of AI, where trust and confidence in content is moving, right? Like we're seeing a lot of 2025 trends around the fact that personalization, humanization, and content is going to be king, because it's getting more and more clear and more distinct on what content is AI generated versus non-AI generated. And so here in the event space, we have, again, a reservoir of human experts and thought leaders that can help us create more robust content. But there's two core challenges. I think the one that we recognized as we were doing these interviews was the best practices around decentralizing are very decentralized. So there's no standardized playbook, there's no universally accepted framework. And as a result, like the results that teams see, that are, event content and production teams might get inconsistent results because there's no one playbook. So this was also our attempt here, where we said, well, let's take a swing at creating the first pass of a playbook. And I guarantee you, this essential guide is going to look different 12 months from now. So this is an evolution. This is a process. but we wanted to try to centralize some of the best practices. And the other thing too is, what Amazon does and what Google does and what Money 2020 does, they all might have differentiated approaches, but we're trying to create a through line. And so number one, like moving from decentralized best practices to centralized best practices. And then number two is oftentimes event teams are siloed from marketing teams. So if you want to think about the Google EEAT framework that I just walked through, we have to build that bridge. We have to deconstruct that silo. Because as event teams are focused on logistics and experience design and session content, making sure speakers are well prepared, making sure attendees have a seamless experience, we want to make sure that the marketing team who is responsible for helping us drive attendance, post-event follow-up, and long tail, long form content from our event are aligned to what we're doing. And so without alignment, we may be working with different objectives, with different outcomes, and our metrics of success might look different. And so effective speaker training is actually extremely relevant for what the broader, annual 6-month marketing strategy and marketing plan is beyond the scope of the event. And again, like valuable insights can come from the content that's created, and oftentimes they remain underutilized, underexposed because they live within the container of the event, but we haven't built the bridge to the greater marketing engine to help share that content more broadly. And we got great affirmation of this challenge in talking with Beth Sermont, who said one of the biggest areas of opportunity for event improvements is closing the gap between event teams and marketing teams. These groups are often siloed when they should be working hand in hand to craft and deliver a compelling story for your event. And I think we see some immediate impacts of effective speaker training. So the other thing that we found in our research was effective speaker training helps increase event retention. So there's a 20% year over year increase in attendees that come back and re-engage. So that's just through optimizing your event content delivery through your speakers. With speaker preparation, we're also ironing out the bumps in production. So we're seeing a 60% reduction in technical related interruptions and difficulties while we're live. And then the last piece is, our speakers and our thought leaders also can help us elevate our brand presence, our brand awareness. And so we're seeing a year over year improvement in brand consistency and a messaging alignment just by bringing our speakers deeper into the fold through speaker training. So those are some immediate impacts that we're seeing just very specifically on the event space. But again, the other impact that we're seeing is that there's a long tail effect. Effective speaker training can have an impact on that broader marketing engine when we deconstruct that silo. So again, this is just going back to that EEAT framework: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And this is just about doing a few things. It's about aligning messaging, so making sure that speakers understand the event narrative and goals. It's about maximizing engagement. We want to train our speakers to connect with the audience both on and off stage. And we're also looking to extend the impact of our content. So if event teams are working with speakers and creating content in a silo that's disconnected from the broader objectives of your marketing team, that content is going to be less impactful in a long tail form. So this is how speakers, like when we bring them in, we bring them aligned, they can help us deliver really polished, really compelling presentations that help drive our content engines long term. And again, when speakers are aligned to our inputs and our outcomes, it also helps drive greater amounts of registrations, and it inspires speakers to act as influencers who attract more attendees. So there's great long-term impact of what happens when we have effective speaker training. Now, have to give a quick shout out because, like I said, over the last 6 months, we've been interviewing experts. There's a lot of brilliant voices and minds that are behind this guide. So I just have to give a shout out to Allison Pierce. She's a lead speaker trainer at Pierce Studios. She works very closely with the Google Cloud team. Mark Ferrone, head of event content at Google. Emily Lewis from Emerald. Rachel Morrissey from Money 2020. Candace Cody from Community Boost, and Beth Sermont. So want to give a shout out because again, like this also wasn't created in a silo. This was created in collaboration with folks in the sector. And we also had dozens of conversations in the field with event marketers, with heads of events, with VPs of marketing and CMOs, getting input and advice on what people were seeing and what they were doing. So this was a collective effort. So without further ado, let's dive into it. So we've got about a half hour left. There's a lot of content to cover, but hopefully we can get through this in a pretty fast click. And I'm really excited. I have a special guest teed up for the end of this session because we're gonna take the first 11 principles here that I'm gonna cover, the first 11 strategies, and we're actually gonna do some real world application. So that's coming at the very end of this. Really excited to introduce a special guest that we have at the end. So let's start with strategy number 1. And this is about creating milestone development for your speakers. And this is just all about creating guardrails, checks and balances to help your speakers feel equipped and prepared through the session creation and content creation process. So there's 4 core milestones that we unearthed in talking with different speaker training teams. One was setting up really clear focused content meetings. So we want to schedule at least 2 content meetings where we're aligning the speaker's content to the event's objectives. And again, it's just ensuring cohesion. It's also ensuring clarity that the speaker feels bought in and aligned to what we're trying to achieve through our conference or event. Milestone number 2 is content outlines. So we've created alignment. Now we're actually going to have an iterative process where we're going to develop a story arc with the speaker. We want to map the session to audience learning objectives. We want to make sure that the speaker is helping address our customers' problems, and we're trying to refine that narrative. So once we've created that outline, now we can move into milestone 3, where we're actually developing and scoping scripts. Teams approach this very differently, by the way. Some teams really, really hands off on script writing. Some teams very, very prescriptive on script writing. So I think it's a blend of what works best for you, but we want to make sure that we have a script locked date. So we want to make sure that because the speaker can stay in this iterative content iteration process forever. It's sort of the marketers. I'm a marketer. It's our greatest dilemma. Like, when is the content ever done? It's never done. So we need a lock date to say, hey, we're going to stop creating content and we need to move into content delivery. We need to focus on moving out of iteration and moving into making sure that we're delivering the content that's been created in the most powerful way. And then that kind of leads us into milestone 4, which is rehearsals and table reads. So it's preparing the speaker to be on stage. It's doing green room table reads where the speaker can get feedback on the content delivery. And it's making minor tweaks and little iterations on content as needed, kind of in this last stretch before we go live. So all these milestones, all these deadlines, all these deliverables, these are all mapped out 6 months in advance. As soon as you secure a speaker, they know exactly what the expectation is and what the process will be in terms of content development to the day that they go live. And Mark had a great point here. Mark from Google Cloud said, one of the most important things we try to do is not distract the speaker from the operational logistics of the whole process. That may be 2 months or more. So we schedule all the rehearsals, all the table reads and meetings about content, even the kickoff where we talk about timeline. All that is in advance. It's super important to get that foundation down. And so, the event team at Google Cloud is really, really focused on keeping the speaker focused on their session content, removing distractions with operational logistics and making it really digestible and easy to schedule all this out 6 months in advance. Number 2, program planning and content development. So this is really diving into that, we already have our outline. Now we're building out the content for our session. And so every single presentation is uniquely designed to educate and engage the audience, which is why every session, like we said in milestone development, has its own audience learning objectives. And so content development could be a 4 to 6 month process prior to the event date. And it's also important to note that the role of production here also plays a crucial role in training speakers in their content delivery. And so, some things that are at play that we can take into consideration is beyond what the speaker is saying, program planning aligned with content development helps us understand a few things. What's the design and scale of the stage itself? What are the technical aspects, including teleprompters, mics, video equipment, that we need to be aware of? How the selected speakers play into the live environment. So what is a speaker's strengths and weaknesses? What is the order of our content and when people are speaking? And how does that change the attendee experience? How does the flow of that content connect into the planning of our program? So this is kind of this space where program planning, content development, and even production design start to intersect a bit. But when we're really aligned to our speakers' strengths, our speakers' weaknesses, and we're also aligned to the content that they're delivering with the audience objectives, we can be really, really well prepared on the logistics side of the fence, on the production side, on the program planning side. And so once a speaker training team and a content team have a really strong grasp on that flow of the program, how that impacts production, now they can begin to hold speakers accountable for the milestones in script writing and refining content. All right, this one's fun: building an authentic hook and story. And so within this 6-month content planning timeframe, the event content and speaker training teams, should aim to meet with speakers at minimum twice. So we want 2 content planning meetings. And there's 2 things that speaker training teams are looking at. They're looking at how do we build an authentic story and hook? So it's one round of development to ensure that the content is compelling and resonates with the audience. And it's then building the hook. So it's creating that authentic story that is key to engaging the audience, right? It's the element that draws the audience into the speaker's personal journey. It's about baking in and teeing speakers up to be vulnerable and human and authentic. And a great presentation, as we all know, is more than just a well-written script, right? It's about that personal component. It's about passion. And so speaker training teams have an opportunity, and event content teams have an opportunity to reignite a speaker's passion. Even though they may have rehearsed this half a dozen times, a dozen times, 24 times, this content is new to the audience. So how are we understanding how connected the speaker is to their own passion, their own vulnerabilities, in the hook that we're trying to create for the audience? And I think the big tip here is the first 30 seconds that a speaker steps out on stage is the most important. It is the most critical moment of a presentation, maybe besides the last words they say. And so in order to draw an audience in, what is that vulnerable story hook that we're delivering in the first 30 seconds? If you downloaded the ebook, you'd see that we created a 4-step process for how to craft your hook in 4 simple steps. So step 1 is about understanding your audience. Step 2 is about choosing a hook style. So is it a provocative question? Is it a surprising stat or title? Is it a deeply personal, vulnerable story? But what is that style of hook that we're delivering in the first 30 seconds? Step 3 is about connecting to the session. So transitioning the hook from the first 30 seconds into the audience objectives and what they're going to get out of the entire session. And then step 4 is testing and refining. So our milestone timeline will help us, again, through table reads and practices, we'll refine the delivery, refine the hook, refine the story that we're telling. And again, making sure that that passion point is front and center in everything that we do. And through some of our interviews, we had a great tip from Allison Pierce. Allison shared that she actually has her speakers record videos of themselves. And part of that, and it's not even recording video of themselves um, working with the script or working with the content. She'll ask them a very simple question about, tell us one of your favorite stories about fill in the blank topic. And it could be something very personal about their own life. Could be about family, kids, moment that changed your life. And she'll record these. And what happens is it helps give a feedback loop for a speaker to know what is their body language when they're sharing this story. How are the words delivered? What's the tonality in their voice? What expressions are they using on their face? Do they get animated? You notice I talk with my hands, right? What are those different expressions that come to life when a speaker is tapping into something personal or tapping into something vulnerable or that they're passionate about? And then using those cues to help coach them on integrating that into their delivery. I think we're on number 4 here. So as we're working on refining the content with our speakers, we want to make sure that, especially when statistics, data are being shared, that we're always connecting back to human stories. Rachel Morrissey had said that if you're going to give me numbers, connect on stories. We are storytelling creatures and we understand the world in narrative for good or for bad. So when you tell a powerful story, that's what the audience is going to carry with them. So we want to make sure that, we're connecting facts to human emotions for deeper resonance in the audience. We want to identify and use key phrases that help jump out at the audience and keep an audience engaged. We want to help master body language. We're going to go into this a little bit later. Again, like I said, we're going to refine our tone and pitch. And we're also going to make sure that our visuals, if there's any visual companions, if we're using a PowerPoint presentation, but even, the production design on stage, the look and feel on stage, the lighting, set design, you name it. How are those visuals enhancing rather than competing with the spoken word and body language of our speaker? So the best ideas, the best script on earth can always fall flat without proper delivery. So making sure that our data points and our storytelling continues to weave in a human narrative. And building on that, number 5 is designing concise, memorable moments. And brevity here doesn't mean sacrificing depth. This was a key takeaway that came from the event content team at Money 2020. They are very, very, very focused on doing a few things. One, they don't allow their speakers more than 15 minutes on stage. The average time that a speaker spends on stage at Money 2020 is like 7 to 8 minutes. And so they have an explicit focus on distilling really, really complex ideas into concise, powerful messages and moments. And so the challenge here is like, how do we strip away the non-essentials? And so a few suggestions here are when we're working on, script writing with our speakers and we're working on the delivery components, we want to make sure we're helping our speakers utilize very precise language. We want to make sure that they're avoiding filler words, and we want to ensure that every single word serves a purpose. And so that helps enhance clarity and impact. Again, the brevity doesn't take away from the depth of the message, but it's about clearly articulating that message in an effective way. And another way that they do this is like in their call for sessions or call for speakers, they actually put word count limits on session titles, session descriptions, session pitches. They require that they're actually like tweet length, before Twitter or X changed the tweet length limit, but it used to be a very confined character limit. And that's how they treat their call for sessions. Again, because they're trying to like they're already trying to coach speakers on conciseness, even through the call for sessions. They haven't even booked the speaker yet, but they're already moving the speaker into a motion that helps design content in a concise, memorable way. Number 6, creating content behind the stage. Rachel here shared the best speakers don't leave a lasting impression on stage. They leave an impression that compels post-session engagement with an audience, right off stage, on the exhibit floor, or even at the bar that evening. And so part of this is about, you know, making sure that, again, as we design concise, memorable moments, that what's being said feels human. Something that Rachel says is like, if you want to actually tune into the conversation that's happening at the bar afterwards, and then use that same verbiage on stage, that's the level of human communication that's going to translate. And again, it's about like distilling down the complexity of your message, down to that of a sixth grader. Like, how does a sixth grade teacher relay a complex idea in a simple form that's memorable, that's digestible? And so it's actually using the offstage connections, the offstage moments to help us learn and inform how we want a speaker to actually deliver that content on stage. And in some cases, the conversation that an attendee has with a speaker, on the showroom floor, it might actually be more powerful, more transformative than what they say on stage. So the other nudge here is, how are we creating an integrated experience where, the second our speaker steps off stage, there's broader opportunities for maybe not necessarily content creation, but there's opportunities for connection, creating memorable moments, helping people get close to the thought leaders that are representing the problem you solve, your brand, etc. And so this is like a great way of, how can we learn from these bar-worthy moments, as Rachel puts it. Moving into number 7, aligning operations to content. We've talked a little bit about this already, but the efforts of content and operations is crucial for a seamless speaker experience. And so when you think about the operations team, beyond logistics, there's a few things that an operations team can actually own. They can handle speaker onboarding. They can manage, robust communication with your hundreds and hundreds of speakers. And we want to ensure that speakers feel valued and prepared. So it's about creating a holistic approach that translates into a lifted, more confident delivery on stage by kind of enhancing the entire experience overall. And so make sure that you align your operations team in helping with designing the stage setup to flow seamlessly with the show floor, right? Like, you're not just creating an experience at your event for attendees, you're actually also creating an experience for your speakers. And so keeping in mind, like, how do we move from just training a speaker to have great content delivery to aligning our team more broadly to help a speaker have a better experience, which will actually elevate the whole experience for the attendees as well. So it's all about, like, some operational elements here are like, what are environmental factors that help speakers enhance delivery? Thinking about your staging, your sound, your lighting. How are the event logistics, like AV support, giving a better, less stressful speaker experience? And how are you creating a setting that maximizes the speaker's comfort and confidence? And so, we can look at this pyramid of speaker success to say, kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In its most simplest form, speakers need clear onboarding and communication, great staging, seamless AV and logistics that minimize tech issues. But then we're moving into collaboration, where we're aligning speakers with goals, maximizing comfort, and then we're driving towards greater results, where we have confident speakers that are elevating their delivery and giving a better attendee experience because the speaker experience was fantastic from the get-go. And I want to go a little deeper on this idea of maximizing comfort. And this is a concept that was developed by Mark Ferrone at Google Cloud. And Mark talks about this concept that he calls the last mile. And he created this out of seeing speakers over and over. Again, I was talking about this earlier. Iterate endlessly, and compensate the iteration eh, by sacrificing delivery prep. And so the idea of this last mile is it's literally the last 10 minutes of what happens before a speaker goes on stage. So it's not just the final moments that happen before a presentation. It's what is the energy and mindset of your speaker? Do they feel really comfortable in the green room? Do they have what they need to feel comfortable before they go on stage? So part of it is about transitioning from content development to rehearsal, but mostly the last mile is about how does your speaker feel in the final minutes before they step on a stage? Because how they feel, where their mindset is, their confidence in their content, all that training that you've done leading up to this moment is actually going to be the decisive factor in how that content's delivered. So making sure that we are maximizing comfort, decreasing stress as much as possible. And this even goes into like considering the level of stress that's happening backstage in production. How is the energy and environment of our behind the scenes team? And how is that impacting a speaker as they literally walk from the green room to side stage before they step on stage? So this is factoring in, again, that speaker experience that helps elevate our content. I love this idea of the last mile and the backstage experience, taking that into consideration in our live productions for content delivery with speakers. All right. Number 9, speaker stage presence coaching. Again, one of our contributors was Allison Pierce, the lead speaker trainer at Pierce Studios. She had great advice around video yourself doing some presentations, watch yourself, watch other speakers, watch executives you admire, and watch what kind of body language feels right. It's a mind-body connection. When you are present and in the moment, your body follows. And so how a speaker holds themselves on stage is just as important as what they say. So in our training, we want to help speakers become aware of their posture, their gestures, their movement on stage, how their word delivery correlates to their body delivery. When are they stepping back, stepping forward? How do they walk around the stage? And ultimately, body language of a speaker is going to help build trust and connection with the audience. Another element here that Allison talked about a lot was harnessing the power of breath work. So great breath work is the foundation of great speaking. And so she uses various breathing techniques to help speakers stay grounded and present. It's been part of great breath work, calms nerves, reduces stress, helps maintain the strength of a speaker's voice, and making sure that they remain steady throughout a presentation. And so great vocal work and breath work is about conveying emotion, keeping speakers calm, creating connection with the audience. And ultimately, this is about practice makes perfect. Google Cloud does something incredible where they actually build an exact replica of the event space on the company campus. And they have speakers come on site a week early and actually deliver all of their content in a replicated space of the venue. So they've actually had a rehearsal. They've practiced all their body language. They've had time to iterate and implement some of this guidance and some of this training on essentially a live stage environment as a practice session. I thought that was brilliant advice. Number 10, supporting a speaker on stage. This is a blend of technical assistance, logistical support, and emotional encouragement. So there's a lot of strategies that an event team can use to help speakers feel prepared, comfortable, and confident during the presentation. If you download the ebook, we'll provide a link at the end. We have a downloadable checklist baked into the ebook where you can kind of check all the boxes from AV equipment, how you're leveraging and using monitors, tips around like how to get the most out of a live demo, how to be prepared for the worst case scenarios. So this is just a great checklist on what are we doing while a speaker is live? How are we considering all the things that could possibly go wrong in order to create a supportive, comfortable experience for our speaker? Right? Making sure that we've tested all the technology in advance, having really clear communication and cueing and stage direction. I think something that, I don't even think I consider in past productions that I've done is how are we advising speakers like exit stage? Like which way are they exiting? I don't think I've ever been that prescriptive in my stage advice. But it's really, really helpful when you're trying to create a seamless flow and a seamless experience. So this real-time support really helps create a smooth experience, minimizes awkward moments, and ensures just a great speaker experience backstage because that will also translate to the audience. All right, number 11, the ripple effect of speaker engagement. And so again, this is going back to that number one challenge of how are we deconstructing the silo between our event team and our marketing team? And this is all baked into how are we lifting up speakers as the trustworthy experts that have the authority on solving the challenges that we're trying to help solve for our customers. And so aligning your speakers with both your event and your marketing strategy is going to amplify the overall impact of the event, right? So this is about like aligning those speakers. We want to help host authentic, meaningful conversations. In doing so, we're going to help drive brand awareness and audience engagement. And a ripple effect that we're seeing is that this is going to boost event registration. This even has an impact on your sponsorships and your sponsor experiences. And overall, like it's going to impact the ROI of your event. And then as we look downstream, there's all of these incredible content syndication opportunities that ripple effect out. So how are we engaging speakers in continuing to contribute to us through guest blocking, co-authored content, continued post-event social media engagement, and how are we actually taking speakers' sessions and transforming that into SEO optimized content? We actually have a great session coming up in a few weeks where we're sitting down with the foremost expert in SEO and digital marketing. And we're going to be playing in the sandbox on how that actually intersects with your session content and your speaker network. But I often like to say that the end of the event is just the beginning of your journey with your speakers because there is an opportunity to create long lasting connections, experiences, and to create a really robust speaker journey that ripples out and can actually help your organization and help your customers long term far beyond the confines of the event bubble that we live in. And so, we want to make sure that we're equipping our speakers with the right tools and training that helps them become enthusiastic, not just about the event, but about our organization, our brand, and the problem that we're solving. All right, we are getting close to the top of the hour, and I'm really excited to introduce Jessica Allen. This is our 12th takeaway here is that technology can help you achieve everything we've talked about today in a more effective and efficient manner. And that's everything from how do we manage our speakers to how are we managing session content. And so, Jess, welcome. Thanks for joining here in the 11th hour of today's live session. But Jess is actually going to pull 4 of the key takeaways that I just walked through. And she's actually going to showcase how you can apply these principles and techniques in our own product here at Session Board. So how do we actually take like this advice, which can sometimes feel like, like that's a great piece of advice, but I don't know or understand how to implement that. Our intention here is we want to show you how that's possible from a really practical, operational, and logistical standpoint. So Jess, I'm going to unshare my screen so you can share and dive into how to leverage technology to manage speakers and content.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I think you mentioned something at the top of the conversation of speakers are just such an invaluable asset, but how do we create consistency as an end result? And I think technology really goes such a long way as a tool in doing that. So I'm excited to share how Session Board as a platform and tool can help us and pulling out some of the key takeaways in the speaker training guide. So let me share my screen here, starting with one of my favorite parts of our platform, which is our speaker portal. So the speaker portal is a great tool for onboarding, just kind of walking through, of course, the logistics of getting your speakers organized and kind of in the process that you need to tee them up from point A to point B towards your event date, of course, but it can be so much more than that. It can absolutely be a channel for relationship building. It can be a space for collaboration. There's huge opportunity to implement so much of the advice in the speaker training guide, and really craft that journey for your speakers. So teeing up, what is the intent of the portal and how can it be a valuable asset for your speakers to enable them, to equip them, to ensure they're trained and prepared for that day of event. So they're delivering the best content for your attendees. And that really contributes to the success of your overall event. So teeing up, what are they going to get out of this speaker portal? What can they expect to find here? And how it's going to benefit them overall. So they know, this is a tool for them and it's a space for them. And so, of course, they're going to see, what sessions they've been accepted to speak on. But this is where, when we're talking about those milestones and all those different points in their journey, you can start to correlate those to tangible tasks that they're going to be moving through, and you can create those here. So as they're moving through that whole process, they have those tangible things that they're going to be completing and checking off as they're moving through that process. So things like, submitting their content, of course, going through those revisions, going through that speaker training, like Allison's tip of submitting that video of them speaking, just so that they get that feel of what are they like when they're talking about something passionate. Whatever that whole process looks like to get them comfortable and prepared, you can map that out externally and then build that through tasks here. The great thing as well is you can add files. And so one of the pages in the speaker training guide, that craft your hook in 4 simple steps, you could pull that out into its own asset here and include that as a resource for your speakers. But you can start to create any of those training guides or resources to really prepare your speakers. And so I think the portal has the possibility to be super robust and really ensure the success of your overall event. So lots of
It's awesome.
possibilities
So
there.
just kind of doubling down here. So like this, this is a speaker facing one-stop shop where they have clarity into all of those milestones we talked about, everything you need from them. And on the back end, like you can manage the collection of these assets, this content, sharing training materials back out to all of your speakers. I just kind of wanted to double down on like you're currently looking at something that a speaker would receive, that you're using at scale across all of your speakers, to help prepare them, train them, and keep them kind of on track in terms of those milestones, as well as just like logistically, what do you need from them?
Absolutely. Yep. And it's completely customizable to what you need for your different types of speakers. You could create a portal for your keynotes versus your, lightning round speakers versus, whatever that looks like for your particular event. So there's a lot of range in what this could be. The other thing to dive into was talking about a lot of Rachel Morrissey at Money 2020's advice. So she talked about really designing those concise, memorable moments and how, our attendees' attention span might be very consolidated. And we want to make sure that's focused. And we're really doubling down on delivering that in a consolidated view where we're getting that content across. And so, something we've introduced is character limits on session titles and descriptions and being able to control that. That was a release we actually introduced into our product yesterday. So you do have control of that. It's great for integrations as well, ensuring that flows over to your website or any other registration tools you're using. So everything maps over really nicely. In addition, you could have custom fields on session links. So if you wanted to offer those 8-minute, 15-minute sessions where it is very focused time lengths, you can certainly introduce that when you're doing a call for papers or call for sessions. So, something you can implement from the speaker training guide. Another piece of advice is
Yeah,
kind of
just great guardrails. Like we had talked about creating guardrails for creating those concise, memorable moments. And like I just feel like this is so grounded and practical where it's like literally like you just have a character limit on the session submission. Boom,
absolutely.
period. That's it. This just is really simple and practical. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. And then going further of, just prepping them for day of gathering AV requirements and ensuring they're ready to go on stage. I loved what you talked about of the last mile of like ensuring they are really ready to make that transition from their content is good to go and they feel prepared of walking onto that stage. So on the back end of session board, you can ask for those things back in that portal of what are those AV needs? What does that look like? Do they have a microphone preference? Do they need a whiteboard? Do they need a special projector? Gathering those and then having that visibility. So you can see that on the speaker side of things. You can filter, you can say, AV needs. Let me see what that looks like. Let me consolidate a view. Let me communicate with those speakers in mass, and then let me pull a report on those AV needs. Let me run that and see, do I need to pull that and have that externally. So day of my event, I have everything there of who needs a PowerPoint and I can make sure my on-site team is prepared and ready to go. So that last mile is successful and everybody has what they need and everyone's, ready to go on stage. And you mentioned that really contributes to the success of how they're delivering that content. You have everything at your fingertips as far as what that looks like on the back end here as well.
Yeah, and I think what you're also pointing out here, Jessica, is that like I think the concept of like how do you bridge content to operations and how do you align content to operations can feel like this kind of abstract concept where it's like, okay, great. Like in theory, that sounds fantastic, but like what do you like how do you actually implement this? And I think this is a really simple display of like we're collecting like as we're building content with our speaker, we're collecting their requirements, their needs, which are then now readily accessible in a scalable format to our entire production team. So now the production team is equipped to like what we've collected on the speaker training side through the speaker portal. So it just again like we kind of inadvertently like are also talking about I said we'd cover 4 tips here, but like we kind of covered a 5th by chance where like this is also how you align your content to your operations.
Mhm. Yeah, so lots of possibilities to just leverage a session board and the technology to ensure your speakers are well prepared, you're mapping out that journey, you're optimizing it for their success, which ultimately contributes to your attendee experience and the overall success of your event.
Beautiful. Well, Jessica, thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for sharing. We are nearing the end of our time together. I want to say thanks to everybody for joining. And before we go, I just want to make sure that I link and access, and you have access to the speaker training guide itself. So if you haven't downloaded it, you can download the full speaker training guide. Here, again, it's 50 pages in depth. It covers all of the 12 key takeaways that we discussed today. And as always, if you have questions, if you need anything, we're here to support. And thanks so much for joining this week's live sessions today.